Hi, I am going to start doing multiple series of multiple bands that I love, and you guys know that. But I have been listening to Wire lately, and Change Becomes Us is the album that I've been listening to, and I'm gonna talk about that today. I always think about where I should start with these bands, and I always think, well, I should go I should go chronologically in chronological order with these bands. Start at the beginning and keep going. But I don't think people really care about that. I think you should talk about the album that you're feeling passionate about at that point in time. And right now, the album that I'm feeling passionate about is Change Becomes Us, Wire. Wire is absolutely, unequivocally one of my favorite bands of all time. There is no question about it. I love Wire. This is one of the great bands in history. They are a great group of for all of the things they are, and they are a great group for all of the things they are not. And you Wire fans know exactly what I'm talking about. Wire is a group that I won't harp on this a lot because I think part of what makes Wire so good is their mystique and how they approach music. But what makes Wire great for me is how they're always sitting on the perimeter of pop music. They write really catchy songs, and they absolutely have written some of the best pop songs in history, in my opinion. But they're always sitting on the outskirts of the what makes pop music pop music. They're examining it. They are deconstructing it. It's almost like they're taking little rocks and throwing it at the windows of the house of pop music. They're trying to crack the window. Like they can write good songs. They can always write pop songs that are catchy. But they're not so interested in always doing that. And they're not interested in excavating their past catalog, their early music. They're not interested in playing that. They're always interested in moving forth and doing different things. And if you look at Wire's history, their whole history is based upon that idea of different approaches and different things. Now, the recent music of the past decade or so, it's very similar. You can see them fall into not a pattern, but kind of a rhythm of its own. It's it's very similar, but it's different than anything else you hear. I love this group. They're hard to explain. Wire is one of the great groups in my life that I've ever heard. All of their albums sound slightly different. They're not afraid to take risks. They're not afraid to do different things. And Change Becomes Us is an album that I think marks an interesting shift and change for them. And I'll show it. Here it is. Really nice cover, gatefold sleeve. I'll show that. You get 13 tracks on here. There they are in all their glory. It's a double album. The album's probably maybe 50 minutes. They probably could have crammed them all onto one side. It's not a long album, even though it is on two records, but it just sounds better. If you'd crammed 25 minutes of music on each side, that wouldn't have sounded as good. So they were smart enough to divide it up into two records here. And this is their own label, Pink Flag. You all know what Pink Flag means. If you don't know what Pink Flag is and you're a Wire fan, I don't know how that's possible. So you know what Pink Flag stands for. If you're new to Wire, it's the name of their first album. This came out in 2011, I want to say. I'm sorry if that's was it 2011? 2013. Okay, it's been a decade. Sorry about that. Years blur together after a while, man. This has been out for 10 years now. This album is actually a collection of older songs that they did back in the early 80s, but they never recorded or never realized. They took these songs from the archives and then they reinvented them and repurposed them for 2013. So it's a collection of old songs, but we wouldn't know that because we'd never heard them. You can hear a couple, like Reinvent Your Second Wheel is kind of a take on an older song. If you're a Wire fan, you'll recognize these titles and lyrics, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why Wire is amazing. Colin Newman and his lyrics is all part of that deconstruction. You look at his song titles, they're very odd, they're very goofy, they don't make sense, they're gibberish. A lot of them are gobbledygook. But if you sit and you listen closely, something else is at work. His lyrics always mean something, but he's not interested in holding your hand. He's not interested in making you understand whatever message it might intend to make. Maybe there is no message. And that's what I like about Wire. They kind of live in that ether. Their music is part of the otherness, if you catch my drift. They're always, yeah, they're always, I've always thought of them, I don't mean peripheral in a way that they're just observing, like they're a voyeur of music or something, but they are to some degree. They're always in the periphery, kind of trying to break down or shake down our concepts of what music is and can be. There, in a lot of ways, Wire is this is going to sound really boring and like a slight, and I kind of understand that. I hope you get what I say when I say this, but Wire is the ultimate intellectual band. If you're a smart person and you're interested in understanding the innards of not just music, but the psychology of music and where it comes from, how it's produced, human relationships with machines, interacting with each other, all of these things that's interesting about music. Wire is your ultimate band. They are they're like the professor of pop music. I always feel like I'm being taught a lesson when I listen to a Wire album. And that might not be their intention, but that's how I feel when I listen to these guys. They're very smart guys, never interested in repeating themselves. But this is an album, made of old material for the most part, but repurposed for today. This is a decade old. It hasn't aged. There are some Wire albums that have aged. I'll get to those in other videos. This hasn't aged. It's only 10 years old. Very nice packaging. I'll break open the gatefold here. Nice package. Nice glossy cover. The inner sleeves are in poly inners here, so Wire knows how to protect vinyl. I'll just show the label on this one. You just get generic inners here, but they are in poly inner sleeves, so that is a good thing. You want to preserve your records, and there's no better way to do that than putting them in poly inner sleeves. But this is one of my favorite Wire albums. I'm one of those people that love all Wire albums. There seem to be two camps of Wire fans sometimes. They really like the old shit or they like the new shit. I like all the shit. When I think of my favorite Wire records, I think of this. I think of Mind Hive, their most recent album. I think of Chairs Missing, which was their second album, going way, way back to the late 70s on that one. I also think of Send, which came out in 2001, 2000, early 2000s, which is a kick-ass record. Send might be my favorite. And that has multiple names, and it got reissued on a box set, a couple years ago. I'll talk about that too. But Send is an amazing album. This is right up there, though. My favorite songs from this album, I would have to say, boy, there's so many on here. There are a couple tracks that are just such classic Wire feels to them. Colin Newman's voice is really emotive, really catchy melodies and lyrics, like Keep Exhaling, the second track on here. Classic Wire. If you're a Wire fan, you know what I mean. Keep Exhaling is an amazing song. Magic Bullet, I think that's the 8th song. Yeah, Magic Bullet. Classic Wire song. I think it's called In Much Besides. It's the second to last song. That's a slower ballady track for Wire. They do that now. Every record they kind of rock. The whole album is just rocking, rocking, rocking. And then they decide to take it down a little bit. and do a slower, more melodic, more introspective and human piece. They're all human pieces, but they slow it down a bit at the end. And they do that on a lot of their recent albums, and it's no less excellent for it. Then you've got song titles like "Stealth of a Stork." That's typical Colin Newman wordplay. Sometimes I think that's what he takes words and he just plays with them. He's not interested in having any meaning to it. You can assign whatever meaning you want to it, and I always talk about that on this channel. I love that with music. I would much prefer the artist not hold my hand. I want generalized concepts and ideas. I want to be able to shape it into something that I can translate for myself. That's really not up to the band. Their job, a band's job, is to take this, what they have inside them, and plaster it on the wall. And then you take what you can out of it. And that's what Wire does. That's what I love about these guys. Wire presents themselves how they are, and then it's up to us to shape it into our own lives, what we're hearing on these records, what we're seeing on these covers. That's what's important. That's why Wire is so great. I'll show the inside again because it's such a nice package. Colin Newman is one of my favorite vocalists and lyricists. He's really funny. He's very droll. And he's very smart. He knows how to play with words. Like right when you think his words are total gibberish, he'll throw a line out there and it's really resonant. You're like, oh yeah, okay. He's not goofing around at all here. Like he'll goof and he'll goof and he'll goof, but then he'll reel you back in with some really powerful shit. Graham Lewis, of course, is on here. He does some vocals. Colin Newman is the main vocalist. Gotobed, one of the coolest titled people ever, is on drums. I will talk about every Wire album because I love this band. One of my all-time favorite bands and one of their best albums. And like I mentioned before, this album is interesting to me because it's a collection of older stuff repurposed for modern times. They had all these songs in their vault and didn't release them and redid them back in 2013. Change Becomes Us. I think that's what that title is about. And it absolutely does become us. These dudes are well into their 60s now, man, and they are still killing it. They haven't, to my ears, they haven't slowed down. And this is proof positive of that. They are still pumping out some amazing music. If you're stuck on the early stuff like Pink Flag and Chairs Missing and 154, I can kind of get that. Those are amazing albums. But you're selling yourself and Wire short if you're not examining these later albums. Why not start here if you've never heard this and you think you're a Wire fan? Change Becomes Us. Because it does. It does become us. Sometimes you change your tastes in music and your musical approaches. Why not start here? What better place to start? Love this album. All right, thanks a lot for watching. I'll get to the other Wire albums, and I love them all, and I love you all, and thanks very much for watching. Bye.